PlayStation has reportedly canceled 2 more video games this week. Yeah, this news comes from Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, who essentially wrote a piece this week that says that both Sony's Bluepoint Games and Sony Bend Studio were working on live service games that are now canceled. Now, a key point to mention here, neither of these studios will be shuttered. In fact, a spokesperson spoke to Jason Schreier saying, Sony Bend and Sony Bluepoint are highly accomplished teams who are valued members of the PlayStation Studio family, and we are working closely with each studio to determine what are the next projects. And this might be obvious for some, but this is clearly the fault of Concord. I mean, anytime a company loses nearly $400 million on one game, you gotta believe that they are going studio from studio and just being like, is anyone gonna play this game? And again, I definitely feel like this is warranted to say, because while Sony failed with Concord, they did succeed with Helldivers 2. So it's like, they've got 2 good cases of where to find some middle ground, and I've got to assume that they're trying to figure out what was the key of success and where to double down on that. Now, as far as what these games actually were, it was reported that Sony's Bluepoint was working on a live service game that was set in the God of War universe, while Sony Bend was making a sci-fi live service video game as well. But following internal reviews by Sony, PlayStation decided to ultimately shut them down. And look, I feel like this is as good as a time as any to say this, but for the love of God, just let Sony Bend make a Days Gone 2. Forget the live services, get back to Days Gone. That game was so underrated, and today it still stands as one of the single greatest zombie video games that has ever been made, and it blows my mind how Sony does not see this. Sony, please, if you're watching, let's zoom this in real quick. If you want to make $1 billion this next generation, let me help. Days Gone 2, SOCOM, The Order 1886 2, Uncharted 5, A New Killzone, and Last of Us 3. Boom! I just made you $1 billion. And it's honestly frustrating because Sony has spent so much time and resources on these video games just to cancel them. I mean, we found out that the Spider-Man Multiverse multiplayer video game got canceled. Obviously, Naughty Dog canceled their Last of Us multiplayer video game. Concord, who could forget that? The God of War multiplayer game that Bluepoint was working on has been canceled. Foam Stars is winding down, and Destruction All-Star, for the love of God, let's just not even talk about that video game. And I guess, this is just another story that makes me question PlayStation leadership. Yes, live services are important, but who the hell greenlit Destruction All-Stars instead of the Order 1886 sequel? And I guess I'm really conflicted here, right? Because live services, there are fun live service video games. Helldivers is a prime example. It's a live service game that does not feel like a live service. And Sony is working on a Horizon Zero Dawn MMO. And they're already saying they want to hit 1 million players with that. But I also look at that and I'm like, I pray to God that doesn't flop. Because MMOs are so hard to stick the landing that I genuinely hope that Sony takes their time and they do not rush it. And I guess again, I'm like, yes, MMOs are cool, but I would have been cool with the SOCOM. Just saying. But anyway, rough few years for Sony, and I genuinely wish them luck. I hope you guys can turn it around and that this MMO is absolutely incredible. But that's going to obviously take a while before it releases. So let's talk about something that's available a lot sooner